Alrighty. Hello, guys. So, Miss Ford is out. I am going to the doctor. I have not been feeling good. So, you have a sub today, but I wanted to go ahead and record today's lesson to make it hopefully easier for you as if I was actually here. So, this is Unit 2, Lesson 13 of the American Revolution Unit. So, we've been talking about this all quarter. Okay. So this says grade 4, module 3, quarter 3, week 7. So we're 7 weeks into the quarter. We actually only have a couple more weeks to track out. Okay, so let's talk about materials that you will need. You will need a copy of Divided Loyalties. You will have to substitute. You may pick students to grab that. You can pause the video and pick those students. You will also need your EL books because we are going to do an assignment out of the book today. Alrighty, so when you get your EL book, go ahead and turn to page 92. Today we're going to talk about a close read of a note catcher, an excerpt of the Declaration of Independence, Part 3. So, to the substitute, I'm going to have you press pause and click the link. You are going to play this video for the students just to kind of refresh their memory of what the Declaration of Independence is. We've been talking about it all quarter, but it doesn't hurt to have a refresher. Okay, so we're going to after this, we're going to read an excerpt from the Declaration of Independence. Then you're going to rewrite it in your own words on page 92. Now, an excerpt is like a piece of a document. Does that make sense? So we are not going to read the entire American Revolution as it is much too long. It's really, really long. And we're just going to take a segment of it, a piece of it. We're going to explore that piece. That's what an excerpt is. Okay. So go ahead and take your pointer fingers and read up top of page 92. It says, "We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved." Okay, so now that we read it together, I'm going to break this into pieces. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the very first sentence. It says, "We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled." So let's break apart some of these words. So to be a representative, representatives are a group of people chosen to act and speak on behalf of a wider group. So we actually have a U.S. House of Representatives, right? And those individual people represent states. So that's a fun fact there. And then to assemble. What does assemble mean? To assemble basically is when a group of people gather together for a cause, right? So today you are assembled together and the cause is education. You are here to get an education. Your parents sent you to school to get an education. But we are assembled together, sitting in this classroom. So we, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America. So these are a group of people representing the United States of America, which were those American colonies, those 13 colonies. In General Congress assembled. So these representatives gathered together. The people that wrote the document, the Declaration of Independence, they gathered together on behalf of the United States of America. That's what that means. Alrighty, take your pointer finger, go to the next sentence. Let's see. So it says, appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions. Okay, so we have a lot of big words in here, so make sure you're paying attention, okay? So appealing is to ask earnestly for help or support on the grounds of reason, justice, or common humanity. That's a fancy way of saying you are asking someone with authority for help. So they're making an appeal, they're asking for help from the supreme judge of the world. Who is the supreme judge of the world according to the context of this passage? That would be the Most High God. They are talking about God Almighty. And so they are asking God, they are appealing to God Almighty for help, for the rectitude of our intentions. Let's look at what rectitude means. Rectitude means morally correct behavior or thinking. So they are summoning the Most High God for help, and they're basically saying that their actions are just and righteous. The rectitude of our intentions. We have good intentions. So, how we would say that in our own words, or that the representatives are appealing to a God, excuse me, they're appealing to the Most High God, God Almighty, because their intentions are morally correct or right, or so they thought. In their eyes, that's what they thought. Okay, next sentence. Do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare. So, again, these are not words that we would use in 2024. They spoke very differently then. They compared to now. They didn't have social media abbreviations. We shorthand things. We have abbreviations for things. People talked a lot more prim and prosh back then, in terms of like British people, American colonists, that sort of thing. They spoke very differently. A lot of higher level vocabulary was used back then too. So let's break some of these words apart. So, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare. So, solemnly means seriously. If I'm solemn about something, it means I'm serious. If I declare, it means I'm making a statement. I'm saying something out of my mouth, or maybe it's written, but I'm making a statement that needs to be heard. So, how do we say this in our own words? For the good people of these colonies, we seriously declare that, moving on, that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. So that's a fancy way of saying that the colonies are to be free and independent. Ought means it should be. These colonies should be free and independent. Okay? So let's see. Next part, sorry. That they are absolved from all allegiance to the British crown. Okay? So let's break this part. Let's break this apart. Given that this document is about independence, what do you think absolved from allegiance might mean? Okay, so absolved means to be released from something. Allegiance means to be loyal and committed to. Okay, so they want to be released from being loyal to the British. They don't want to be loyal to the British anymore. They don't see themselves as connected anymore because of the injustices. They did not like the taxes, the lack of representation in the British crown, like the government. They didn't have a lot of rule. They couldn't even vote half the time on affairs that happened at home in their homeland in Great Britain. They were taxed unfairly because of that French and Indian War, how expensive it cost. So they were just tired. They were tired of King George III. They were tired of the disparities. They were tired of the harsh rule of the British armed soldiers that were there. They were harsh and they were controlling. These were just three of the unfair incidents. There was much more that took place. British Crown means the king, King George III, and the government of Great Britain. They did not want to be under British rule. So they wanted to be released from allegiance, meaning committed to the British Crown. And that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. Okay, so given that you know this document is about independence, what do you think dissolved might mean? Okay, so we're not talking about dissolved when you take sugar and mix it in water, right? That's a different context. And it blends into the water on a molecular level. That would be like science. But in this case, dissolved means to be done, to be ended. They want the connection between the United States, the United Colonies, and Great Britain's rule to end. They just want to be their own separate nations, is what they're saying. They want complete independence from the British Crown, British rule. Okay? So I just want to give a friendly reminder, just in light of what we've been learning. It is important to note that the Declaration of Independence, um, that that can be a culturally sensitive topic because we do know that there are only two groups involved in this. You've got the patriots and you've got the loyalists. Okay, in their eyes, they felt like they were justified to take control of this land, but who owned the land first? Who would like to take a moment to answer that question? If you said indigenous Indians, you are correct. So, this is actually Native American land that we are all living on. And the Declaration of Independence did not have any room for them. This land was basically taken from them. So I do want you to keep that in mind, that they thought that they had the rights to a land that they colonized. When you colonize something, you take it over. You seize control. So they basically took over land that rightfully did not belong to them. And yeah, that's tough history, but I do want to teach you holistically. So just keep that in mind, okay? I don't want you guys to be to not know that. Okay, now go ahead and look at the bottom of page 92. Okay, you may not be able to see, but it should look like this. I've only got this little bubble, unfortunately. Number one says, write this excerpt of the Declaration of Independence in your own words. Now, here's a sample student response of what Ms. Ford is looking for. You may not copy word for word what I've written. You have to think and use your own words. This is just a guide. And feel free to write more. This is the example I got from the module book, but I would really like to see at least three to four sentences. I want to see three sentences at least. Okay. So a sample student response. We, the representatives of the people of the colonies, of the people in the colonies, say that the colonies are now independent of British rule. Okay, so you can definitely add more to that. This is a very basic baseline here, right? We, the representatives of, you could say the American colonies, right? Um, the American colonies, you can say the 13 colonies. You can go into more specifics. Are now want to be now independent of British rule. This example that they gave in the book actually didn't even include anything about their appeal to God. You can mention that. Um, they're appealing to the supreme judge of the world. We appeal to God Almighty, right? Because we have pure intentions on behalf of these people that are in the colonies, and we believe we ought to be free as independent states, right? You can draw that out a bit more. But here's a baseline in case you don't know what to start. Substitute, you can feel free to leave this teacher example up. I also have linked the 10-minute timer. You can click on the ad. This is a pre-recorded one, but you can click on the actual slide and it'll be up there. Um, I'm only going to give you 10 minutes. I think that's enough time to get, a couple of sentences out. You may work with your table. Please no goofing around, okay? Let's make sure we're on topic with this, okay? This time is of the essence. So that'll be posted, and uh, you can press pause on this recording, and I will see you back in 10 minutes. Okay, awesome. So hopefully that went well. Now we are going to move on to part two. Okay, so go ahead and flip to page 93. You should see a chart. Okay, part two, it says choose one character in divided loyalties. You can choose Robert, William, Mary, or Abigail. From what you have read in divided loyalties, in your opinion, what would the character think of this excerpt of the Declaration of Independence? Based on his or her situation, would he or she agree? Why or why not? Use your divided loyalties text to complete the note catcher below. Okay? So before we delve into this, let's talk for a moment. Please keep in mind that the Patriots, aka rebels, wrote the Declaration of Independence. So you have to ask yourself, what is the difference between a patriot and a loyalist? Okay? So the Patriots were those that wanted to break away from British rule. They wanted to become their own country, the United States of America, right? And they didn't want to be a part of King George's reign anymore. King George III's his reign anymore. Then you've got those were the patriots. Then you have the loyalists who were devoted and supportive of King George III. They said we are British subjects, meaning we are subject under the rule. We are under the reign and the rule of King George III. And that is where we came from. We will be faithful to him. We will not be traitors. Traitor means to turn your back on somebody, right? So you've got the patriots and you've got the loyalists. So the Declaration of Independence was written by a bunch of patriots. So keep that in mind. So if they wrote the Declaration of Independence, that means they were against the British rule. So let's talk about the characters. You've got Robert and Mary, who are loyalists. Dad Robert, Mom Mary. Then you've got the kids. Abigail is definitely a patriot. And then William is definitely a patriot because he went to fight for the rebel cause, the patriot cause in the war. So you have to ask yourself, who am I going to pick? And what would they think about a rebel written document, right? Would Robert, who is a loyalist, meaning supporter of British rule, support a breakup letter written by his king's enemies? Because that's what the Declaration of Independence is basically. It's basically a breakup letter. They're like, we don't want you anymore, right? If he's a loyalist and a supporter of the British reign, British crown, would he support the Declaration of Independence? No. So that's an example for you, right? Now I have to go in the divided loyalties book and prove my answer. You have to give a quotation mark, right? You have to give a piece of evidence. A quote is when you take a piece of the passage or the book you're reading and you write it down, right? You put the page number. Okay, we've been doing this quite a bit this quarter, but you need to give Miss Ford evidence to support your answer. So if I said Robert would disagree with the Declaration of Independence because he was a loyalist. He supported King George III. That's the correct answer. I have to go into the book and find a piece of evidence to support that. Okay? So Here's a sample response. So, Robert would not agree with separating from Britain for independence. Evidence. Act 1, Scene 2. Robert says to Mrs. Smith, I still support the king. I see no reason to change things here in America. Act 1, Scene 2. William, we are loyal to the king and that's final. So Robert is talking to his son. He's like, we are loyal to the king, King George III. And that's final. I don't want to talk about it anymore. So the book is loaded with examples. The book is loaded with evidence as to why each character thought what they thought. And now it's your turn to go dig in the book and find it. Okay? So, substitute, you may go ahead and pause the video. Class, if you just gave me, let's see, you can just give me two examples. Give me two quotes, right? So if you pick Robert, find two quotes that support why he would not support the Declaration of Independence. If you do Abigail, find me two quotes as to why she would support the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so you were free to work with your table. Please work with your table on this. Okay, today is group work. I want you to do group work today. So I will give you 12 minutes. Substitute, you may pause this video. And if you click on the actual link of the slide that's not pre recorded, you will have a 12-minute timer linked in the actual slide. And then when that's done, you can press play and we can keep on going. Alrighty, welcome back. Hopefully that went well. So we are going to talk about the answers. So again, we talked about how Robert would not agree with separating with Great Britain for independence. We saw that evidence in Act 1, Scene 2, and he said, I still support the king. I see no reason to change things here in America. And we also see in Act 1, Scene 2, when William said, we are loyal to the king, and that is final. Alrighty, let's look at some other sample student responses. Abigail. So Abigail would agree because she questions the loyalist views of her parents and helps the Sons of Liberty. In Act 2, Scene 1, she says, why are we loyal to a country that is so far away? Act 2, Scene 2, I want to be a patriot as much as you do. So just keep this in mind, okay? So make sure that you're giving the evidence to support your answers. Alrighty, friends, that is it. If you have not finished that, make sure you go ahead and get that done because it is due by the end of class. So I know this is a 24, 25-minute video, but please make sure you get this done. And yes, I hope that you have a fabulous Wednesday. And when you are finished, make sure that you read a physical book. You're not getting on Epic. You're not getting on your computer at all. Until All Block, you can physically grab a book and read quietly without chit-chatting with your neighbors. If you want to help your table mates, you may. Okay, no moving around the room, no volunteering to go help other people from halfway across the room. Please just stay at your table, help your table mates, and when you're all done, you can quietly read a book until it's time to move on to All Block. I'm looking forward to hearing good reports from the sub. I hope that you're being respectful, and I hope that you're setting a good example for your peers.